Our protagonist Tenno Sho, who is 35 years old, is confused as he finds himself in a strange place. He wonders where he is and tries to remember why he is there. The last thing he remembers is that his head was really fuzzy that morning. He must have overslept, gone to work as usual, and then when returning from work, he had been overrun by a truck. He also remembers that 4 other people had been overrun by the truck too, and he looked back to find them floating behind him. They were glowing, and Sho wonders if they were even conscious. Looking at himself, he realizes he is not glowing like the others. Suddenly, Sho hears a voice panicking, wondering what to do as the summoning was incomplete, and it might send the people back to their original world. The voice refers to the people as brave heroes, and Sho wonders if by brave heroes, the voice means people like the main character in those comic books his sister is addicted to. At that moment, another voice startles Sho, shouting at the owner of the first voice, asking what it is doing. Sho is confused as there is no one there, but someone is yelling really loud. When he turns around, he finds out that the other 4 people have disappeared. The first voice realizes that he has been found out and starts panicking more. Suddenly, it realizes there is one more person Sho. Listening to the voices, Sho guesses he was not supposed to be part of this, even though he was with the other 4 people a while ago. Suddenly, the second voice starts scolding the first, saying how much of a bad idea summoning is because it disrupts the world order. Yet he had still used his summoning skills even though he was just a novice. All of a sudden, Sho starts falling and wonders what will happen to him. After a while in a forest, Sho wakes up feeling tired, his body sluggish and heavy. He gets up, looks around, and realizes he is in a forest. Sho is having a difficult time because of his sluggishness, and the forest is so dark and gloomy that it makes him depressed. Sho wonders if it is not the afterlife, then where he is, and from what he heard earlier, perhaps he got caught up in some hero summoning ritual. Sho recalls a happy memory about his sister who liked hero being summoned to another world types of comics. She would always tell him those sorts of stories, but he never thought they would be real. Sho wonders if it is really a different world, and if he could ever return home. The dark, gloomy forest is weighing on Sho, so to vent his frustration, he yells. After that, he feels a little better, and thinks about how he should calmly sort the situation out. Sho then recalls what his sister had told him about other worlds having magic and demons. He realizes he screamed really loud a moment ago, and turns around to see if anybody is behind him. But there is nobody there. Sho does not feel good as something feels like it is clinging to his body ever since he woke up, slowly moving into his body. He wants to ask somebody for help, but there is nobody in the dense forest, and his condition is worsening. Sho thinks how the forest is shrouded in darkness and wonders if it is a curse causing his fatigue or perhaps an evil spirit. He decides to try something and gathers courage as he embarrassingly chants the purification spell. Nothing happens, and Sho's face turns red in embarrassment as he does not even know if magic and spirits even exist in this world. Suddenly, Sho's body starts feeling lighter and starts recovering. He hurriedly casts the purification spell again, and the black haze surrounding him starts fading away. Sho is terrified that an evil spirit was really clinging on to him, and he has now confirmed it is a world where it is possible to use magic. At that moment, something creeps up behind Sho. He starts sweating as he looks back, and is terrified to see a huge wolf glaring at him. Sho starts thinking about what he should do, as he should not be reckless to start fighting it. He thinks about quietly walking away, but realizes running would be pointless as the wolf would come after him. Sho then notices the wolf's legs trembling, but has no time to analyze it as he is the prey and needs to get out of there. Suddenly, the wolf attacks Sho, but before he can move, the wolf topples over and falls down. The wolf is not able to stand up, but keeps growling at Sho. Sho realizes that the wolf is also suffering from the black haze that covered him earlier. Our kind-hearted Sho is freaking out, but he knows he has to save the wolf as he is an animal lover. He decides to try the purification magic as it worked fine on him a while ago. The wolf is still growling at Sho, but Sho decides to take the risk as he goes near the wolf and casts the purification magic. The black haze disappears from the wolf, and Sho is happy it worked. The wolf is confused about how he was cured and starts sniffing his body to find out what had happened. Seeing the wolf, Sho thinks it is cute and wants to fluff its fur. Even though the wolf is still huge, it looks cool rather than scary after the black haze is lifted. It still has some dirt on his body, and Sho does not like it as he is Japanese, as Japanese people prioritized cleanliness. The wolf comes near Sho, and Sho wonders if it is going to attack, but the wolf does not attack him. The wolf stretches, and Sho thinks its belly looks impressive, but the dirt on him does not look good at all. Sho wonders if magic would be able to help. He casts the spell Cleanse on the wolf, which immediately cleans its fur. The wolf takes another look at Sho and starts leaving. Sho calls back the wolf and starts running behind him as the wolf is leaving. The wolf is fast, and Sho is still running in front of the wolf. Realizing this, the wolf knows Sho is not an ordinary man. 200 years ago, the forest was shrouded in darkness. It wasn't something that anyone could simply do, but mankind had managed to pull it off somehow or the other. As the forest was enveloped by darkness, the weak creatures were the ones getting eliminated, while the strong survived. This was the tale told by the king of wolves, Fenrir. For the last 200 years, Fenrir had watched over the forest and witnessed countless deaths. Fenrir's magic power was strong enough to resist the darkness for a while, but the purification magic it used to ward it off was only temporary. Chanting spells consumed magic, and doing so repeatedly depleted its magic at a much faster pace. Having used up too much of its magic power over time, Fenrir feared it wouldn't survive much longer. Suddenly, anger overcame Fenrir as it cursed humans for casting the darkness, vowing to slaughter every one of them. At that moment, Fenrir smelled a human, and its anger surged as it ran towards the person, who turned out to be Sho. However, upon approaching Sho, Fenrir realized it was too weak, frustrating it. The darkness was swallowing it, and it was determined to kill Sho before losing its consciousness, growing angrier as the situation frustrated it. It was at that moment that Sho cast a purification magic on Fenrir. Fenrir was surprised that Sho was able to cast purification magic, and thought that the effect of the magic would only be temporary and Sho would have to face a backlash anytime soon. But it came as another shock to Fenrir that there was no backlash on Sho, and it was dumbfounded by the overwhelming magic power of Sho as it spread through its whole body and healed it. Fenrir had never seen such precise and bottomless magical power. It was the first time King Fenrir made a human its master. However, it had no qualms about expressing its obedience to Sho. After that, we return to the present time with Sho and Fenrir traveling through the forest with Fenrir leading the way. Sho is happily running around when Fenrir changes direction as it goes towards a cave. Sho and Fenrir stand in front of the cave, and Fenrir gives a terrifying look while looking towards the cave. Sho asks Fenrir if it wants to go into the cave, and Fenrir happily wags its tail. Sho starts sweating as he stands before the cave and says that the cave looks shady, and he has a bad feeling about it, and he would rather not go in. But Fenrir starts pushing Sho into the cave, and Sho agrees, saying that he was just joking, and he would go into it. Sho then casts the purification magic in the cave, but the curse does not go away completely, and Sho wonders how big the cave is. Sho then hears some sounds as he looks around, and he sees many glowing eyes in the dark, and he wonders if it is the place where the wolf lived. Slowly, ferocious wolves start coming out of the darkness as they start growling at Sho. But at that moment, Fenrir comes forward and howls at the other wolves, which calms them down in an instant. Sho then casts purification magic on the wolves. As Sho goes further into the cave, he sees that there are bodies of dead wolves gathered together, and this is why the curse has become so dense in the cave. Seeing all the dead bodies, the wolves to look towards him with expectations, and Sho gets the feeling that he has to make it work somehow. Sho starts imagining the image of the curse fading away more strongly than it had done before, as it is crucial to imagine the spell, otherwise the spell would not work. Sho then casts the purification magic on the dead wolves, and slowly, they start turning into specks of light as the curse, and they disappear together. Sho then looks towards the animals in the cave and realizes that there are wolves and a dog. He then looks at them and says that they are quite dirty, which upsets the animals. Sho wonders if the animals are able to understand what he said as he casts the clean spell on the animals. Seeing Fenrir interact with the other animals, Sho thinks that the wolves and Fenrir are friends. Sho then wonders what he should do from here on, as he looks around the cave and sees that there are multiple tunnels leading further into the cave. Sho asks Fenrir if it has any idea about what is in there, and Fenrir shakes its head in denial. Seeing that, Sho realizes that Fenrir and the others are able to understand him, and he wonders if he would be able to rely on them. Sho then starts going deeper into the cave and realizes that it gets darker the deeper they go because of the curse, and there should be a reason behind that all. Sho keeps casting purification magic over and over again as they go deeper into the cave. But after a while, Sho realizes that there is no end to the darkness, and the wolves are also getting engulfed in darkness once more, and it does not look good at all. And Sho realizes that he has to do something quickly to keep the curse away from them. As he thinks that he would have to use a barrier spell, Sho knows that he does not need to cast an individual barrier on everyone, and he could cast a collective barrier on all of them at once. After imagining, Sho casts this barrier spell, which covers them all together. The spell works, and Sho wonders if the barrier is effective against physical attacks, as he still does not know what is out there. Sho then thinks about reinforcing the barrier, and he thinks that the barrier would repel both physical and magic attacks, and he thinks that it is worth a try. So, the determined Sho casts the spell to enhance to strengthen the barrier. Fenrir looks puzzled at Sho about what he is doing, and Sho explains that he is just strengthening the barrier around them so that they should be fine. After that, their exploration into the cave goes on, and Sho realizes that the cave is much bigger than he had thought it to be. Sho knows that he needs to do something or other with his magic in that situation, and he thinks about using a night vision or clairvoyance spell. But the problem is he has no idea what kind of image he should create. But then he thinks that it is just a matter of recognizing the shape of his surrounding space. So Sho closes his eyes as he imagines and casts the spell night vision and spatial awareness. The spell works, and it feels real even though it is being projected into Sho's mind, as a whole area is now visible to him, and he creates the image of the whole area and decides to purify every inch of that place as he casts the purification magic, and after that the barrier spell. At that moment, the wolves start howling at something, and Sho turns around and looks at it and is surprised to see a huge boulder. Suddenly, there is a flash of light, and Sho is shocked as he wonders if something hit the barrier. Sho hurriedly asks Fenrir if there is some sort of curse on the boulder, but Fenrir just tilts its head in confusion. The boulder suddenly attacks the barrier by striking at it, and it keeps repeatedly doing that. Sho wonders if the rock is alive, as its behavior is similar to the first time they had met Fenrir. Thinking that, Sho casts the purification spell on the boulder, but it does not work. Sho thinks that either the curse is too strong or his purification spell is weak. Sho then thinks about what he should imagine to cast a spell, about if he should imagine purifying the rock even harder. But then he gives up on that. It realizes that he had been picturing the curse to move away, then totally making it disappear, as he had seen it in movies and commercials. But that would not work for a stiff rock. Sho then thinks that trying to picture something persistent, which does not come off easily and slowly gets shifted off and vanishes for good, would be able to do the trick. So, imagining that image, Sho casts the purification spell. Pieces of rocks start to break off from the boulder, and after the spell ends, there is a little bird lying on the ground. Sho is surprised to see the little bird as it flies towards it and lands on its arm. The little bird is covered in blood, and Sho realizes that he needs to heal it. So he imagines the spell and casts heal and clean on the little bird. The little bird gets healed, and it starts looking gorgeous after the spell. But Sho realizes that the bird is very small, and he says that it was unfortunate, which angers the little bird as it starts pecking Sho's hand. Sho then apologizes to the angry bird as he starts caressing its head and thinks that the bird is quite cute. Sho is taking a short break when he gets lost in his thoughts and thinks about how the barrier is shining, which was odd. He consoles himself, saying that there are a lot of things he does not understand. At that moment, two of the wolves notice something and howl to get Sho's attention. Sho takes a look and realizes that a black shadow is trying to enter the barrier. Suddenly, streaks of light start flashing on the barrier, and Sho wonders if the barrier is attacking the shadow. Seeing the barrier being able to attack the shadow, Sho thinks that it is reassuring, but he is curious about the wolves getting better. He notices that Fenrir has not eaten anything since they met and seemed dizzy at first, but now it is fine. Sho then gives up and sits down, thinking he cannot do anything about it at the moment. His main concern is to find a safe place to sleep, along with food and water. He believes he should start with what is absolutely needed to survive, and it is none other than water. For the moment, Sho is certainly alive, but he wants to survive and does not want to get caught up in something nonsensical and die. The cave seems to be one of the best places where Sho could relax, and he would be able to purify the entire gift. Then he thought that he would be able to sleep in peace, but for that, he needed to do something about the black shadow. The fact that the black shadow was interacting with the barrier meant that it had to have a source outside. Sho feels uneasy whenever he senses the shadow and realizes he needs to do something about it. But the problem is he cannot purify the source without knowing what it is. So he needs to get a glimpse of the whole cave and wonders if he could do it with the magic he had used earlier. Sho then casts the spell Spiritual Awareness again, but the spell cannot do anything, as if the shadows are too dense to see through. The silver lining is that Sho can tell there is more space in the cave. Sho realizes he can only look inside the barrier, and to look beyond the limit, he needs something like farsightedness or clairvoyance ability. He needs magic that will allow him to view the cave from a different perspective, something that will allow him to look from afar, like a drone with video capture. Sho then recalls how watching real footage of the sunset captured by drones was quite beautiful on TV, and that was just the thing Sho needed, as it was a beautiful imagery that could be used to cast a spell, clairvoyance, and so he does it. The spell works, and a monitored type thing pops up in front of Sho, showing him the view of the full mountain. The mountain is used where the entrance is very small. Sho decides that he will purify it by imagining that he could cover the whole area. He thinks about how he does not know whether there is such a thing as reversing a curse, and if purifying the shadow would make the curse return to the source. But then Sho realizes that thinking about that is useless, and the person who cast the curse would reap what they sowed. So Sho casts the purification spell on the whole mountain together with the barrier spell. The wolves look in awe as Sho casts the spell. The shadow is lifted from the whole mountain as the curse escapes, and a barrier covers it all around. Sho is happy with the perfect spell, but it is too early to rejoice as an hour later, there is a shadow which had already entered the mountain again. Confused as he tries to locate the source of the shadow, he finds out that the source of the shadow is the ground. Sho feels irritated, so he decides that he will purify it again. And this time he will do it even wider and deeper, as he will cover the whole ground along with the mountain and the sky with a barrier. Sho decides that he will drive the curse back to its source, as he casts a huge and massive purification spell along with a barrier enhancement spell. After casting the huge spell, Sho realizes that although he is physically not tired, he is mentally exhausted, and his hands and feet are trembling. Sho starts panicking as he thinks about what he should do next and desperately wants to go home. At that moment, Enrique comes and lays his head on Sho's lap. Sho then calms down and realizes that he cannot do anything about the situation by panicking about it and being pessimistic, and how Fenrir was able to calm him down. While Sho is in the cave, In a palace on the other side of the world, a stone is floating over a mural, and a piece of the stone cracks. In the throne room of the same palace, a man is sitting on the throne when a person wearing a cloak comes and kneels in front of him, informing him that something unusual is happening in the forest. He then explains that there have been sightings of white light from the center of the forest. The king smirks and says that it must be the final struggle of the king of the forest before it dies, and orders the men to sacrifice more blood to the magic stone. The man in blue agrees as he goes away to execute the order. The king then laughs as he thinks about how close he is to having the forest, which is the center of the world. He then thinks about the beasts who were the strong kings in the forest. But that was a long time ago, and it is almost time that all the kings in the forest are dead. He thinks that it is an honorable thing to devote their lives to the emperor, for he thinks it is a great cause. Then we see another scene of the room with the magic stone, where we see dozens of people lying on the ground, the magic stone sucking away their blood, and the dead people also included children. In another palace, a beast man is kneeling, and another beast man who is the king asks him what is wrong with the forest, as there have not been any changes in the forest since the last few decades, and what is happening now. The kingdom which has cast a complex magic I spell over the entire forest is the kingdom of Invelas. Due to that, many holy beasts have disappeared, and the demons are now overflowing in the forest. And in the last 200 years, no country has fought against that because some countries around the forest have also disappeared entirely. The king beast man then says that it must be true that the kingdom of Invelas has sacrificed hundreds of thousands of lives for that evil magic I spell. The kneeling beast man then says that there is nothing they could do, and the king says that although they do not wish it, they have to accept it, as soon the humans will dominate the entire world, and their country will disappear just like the others, and he prays to the god of creation to help them. At that moment, Sho hears come out of the cave as he says that it feels good to see the blue sky. Sho then looks at Fenrir and thinks about how he had thought that Fenrir would go away after he was done purifying. Sho then asks Fenrir if he would stay with him. Fenrir makes a sound, but Sho is not able to understand him at all. Sho then thinks about how although he does not understand Fenrir, he should give it a name. He then recalls how during the first encounter, the first thing he had noticed of Fenrir was his white and silvery fur. So he named the king Fenrir Koa, and since the other wolves also had the same fur color as Fenrir, he named the female wolf War and the male Hero. He named the black wolf Ro and the white wolf Sion, and then he named the only dog in the group Chai. He then looks at the bird on his shoulder and notices its beautiful gradient-colored feathers and its beautiful voice, so he decides to name it Karen. Sho is happy with himself, thinking he has a great naming sense. But then he recalls how his little sister always said that Sho was already in his second year, but he still had the worst naming sense. While Sho is lost in his thoughts, Fenrir is happy as he has been given a name, as Sho had mistaken him for normal wolves. Another wolf comes near Fenrir, whom we will now call Koa, and asks him what the human had said. Koa explains that Sho is giving them names and says that if it were not for Sho, their Fenrir race would have been wiped out. He adds that Sho, being a human, he looks up to, as Sho has exceptionally great magical power and healing power. He then says to the others that since Josh has stayed by Sho's side, they have gained many benefits, and he has been able to recover his magic power. The other wolves agree with Koa, and so Koa then commands them, saying that all the Fenrir from then on would obey Sho as their lord. Koa then asks the dire wolf, whom Sho had mistaken for a dog, what he plans to do. The dire wolf says that he has been given shelter by the Fenrir, so there is no reason for him not to obey their orders. Seeing everybody agree, Koa then says that with the strength they have received from their lord Sho, they should do their best. At that moment, Sho turns around and asks Koa if they all know a place with water. Seeing the wolves not responding and looking at him, Sho thinks that they do not understand what he said, so he tries to explain to them again about the place with water. But before he can say something else, Kiru and Shin start running and racing among themselves to decide who will be the first one to guide Sho. Sho is surprised as the wolves start running, and he cheers behind them, asking them to wait for him. Sho is a little shocked as the wolves are not stopping, even though they have gone past the barrier. After a while, the wolves lead Sho to a place with water. But when Sho sees the water, he is shocked, as due to the curse, the water has become poisonous and is bubbling. Sho is still not able to believe that it is water, and he asks the wolves again. The wolves are looking at Sho hopefully, but Sho says that even if he purified it, the water would still be a bit disgusting. But seeing the hopeful look on the faces of the wolves, Sho is not able to do anything, so instead, he starts scratching their fur and congratulates them for doing a good job. However, the problem is that Sho couldn't purify the water until he has healed. After that, the wolves and Sho leave that place, as using that water does not seem feasible, and Sho hopes that they find spring water in the middle of the barrier. He realizes that he misses the water back in Japan, and is looking at his hand while muttering the word water, when all of a sudden, water comes out through magic from his hand. Seeing that water comes out of his palm when he imagines it, Sho thinks that he can create something he feels like eating. So he imagines a bowl of judon with his favorite ingredients and tries to summon it. But nothing happens while the wolves look on in confusion at Sho's antics. Sho then embarrassingly realizes that it's not possible with cooked food, but he still doesn't want to give up. So he tries to imagine and summon ingredients, but again nothing happens. After trying a few more times, Sho gives up, sits down, as he realizes that it's no good. Sho thinks that he cannot make things that do not exist in the world appear, so he gives up and decides to try looking for food. Sho then thinks that since he's going to use Rocky Mountain as his base, he should secure the area around it. Sho also thinks that it would be nice if the trees had things like nuts and fruits, but he decides not to touch the mushrooms for now as they could be poisonous. Sho starts exploring his surroundings at Rocky Mountain, but to his dismay, he does not find any fruits or nuts on the trees. Not finding anything to eat, Sho is disappointed as he thinks he will starve if he doesn't find anything. At that moment, Hyo comes from behind and nudges Sho on the back. Hyo then nods towards Kiru and Shin, and they run towards the forest, leaving Sho confused about where they were going. Sho looks towards Koa and asks about them, but Koa only howls in a cool way, and Sho is not able to understand Koa's message. Seeing Sho not being able to understand him, Koa feels troubled, but Sho consoles Koa, saying that the others would come back soon, and they should continue to look for food. They keep searching, but to Sho's frustration, there is nothing but trees, and he is getting hungrier by the minute. He is also concerned about the issue of not finding any nuts or fruits in the world. At that moment, Sho is surprised as he comes across a new cave. The hole he was in the morning was very difficult to get in or out of due to its location. But since the new cave has its entrance near the base of the mountain, it looks like a good place to live. But Sho cannot go in carelessly, so he decides to first use spatial awareness. After using the spell, Sho can see that the cave is pretty wide and has an upward passage, which is nearly 3 stories high. The cave also has a lot of space underground, and Sho is excited to live there. At that moment, Sho hears some sounds and realizes that the wolves are back. But when Sho turns around, he is taken by shock as they have brought a huge monster with them. Sho asks them if they had brought it for him, and they happily bark at Sho. The wolves are dazzling, but Sho is a little terrified as the huge monster is food for them. But since they have brought the precious food with great pains, he has no choice but to eat it. So he congratulates them for doing a great job as he hugs them. But Sho is a little concerned about how he is going to dismantle the monster. Sho first decides to clean every nook and cranny of the monster, as he imagines a vacuum cleaner in his mind, and uses the purification spell to send all the curse back to its source. Now the monster is all clean, and the wolves are also happy too. The monster looks like a wild boar, and Sho wonders if Koa is also a monster. But seeing that Koa is too cute, He thinks that there is no way Koa is a monster. Sho looks at the wolves and thinks that they will not be able to bite into the boar, and he starts sweating as he has no choice but to dismantle it. But Sho does not know that the wolves are ready to eat it, as they are easily able to tear up the boar. Sho then wonders how he should dismantle it, and then he wonders if there is any way to cool the meat so it will not worsen. So then Sho tries to imagine the cooling effect of the refrigerator he had bought on his free day and uses the spell refrigeration. The wolves are confused about the boar turning cold, but for Sho, the next step is to drain the blood. But Sho is a scaredy cat, and he will not be able to handle blood. So he wonders if he could do something about that with magic. And since blood was nearly same as water, he wonders if he should try draining it. But then he realizes if he did that, all the meat would just dry up. So Sho puts his hand on the boar and tries to look into the inside. But when he sees all the internal parts of the boar, he is not able to handle it and starts vomiting. During this time, the wolves are discussing what Sho is doing, as they think it would have been better to eat the boar when it was warm, and if there was something that was displeasing Sho. The wolves are upset, but they can't do anything. Sho then decides to pull the blood vessels and internal organs, so he first decides to take out the blood vessels in an instant and burn them. At that moment, Koa is also explaining to the other wolves that Sho has no claws or tusks, so it would have been hard for him to eat the food. That's why Sho is doing all that. The other wolves then say that if Koa orders them, they would just eat the boar for Sho. At that moment, Sho casts the spell instantaneous movement as he pulls out the blood vessels and burns them. The wolves are happy that they will be able to eat it, but they are disappointed when Sho burns everything. Sho had cut a fish before, but an animal like a boar has a lot of internal organs like the liver, kidneys, and the brain and eyes. So Sho has no choice but to imagine it as he uses instantaneous movement to bring out all the internal organs. The wolves are happy to see the liver and all the organs, but their happiness does not last long as Sho immediately burns all the organs again. Sho then knows that he is able to cool and burn things when he gives it a try, so when it comes to natural phenomenon, he can use magic for it. Sho then uses wind magic to slice up the boar into pieces, but then he realizes that he has forgotten to take off the fur. Sho then takes a single piece of meat and tells everyone to feed the rest. Koa then instructs the other wolves that he will let those who have caught the boar choose first, as the wolves race towards the meat. At that moment, Chai, the dire wolf, comes and asks Koa if he could eat a little if Koa did not mind it. Koa then says that of course, Chai could eat as they must cooperate in any way until the original bountiful forest returns, and then says that if he put it daringly like a human, they would share the same destiny. Chai says that Koa, the king Fenrir, has a lot of wisdom. Koa then reminds Chai that Chai is also the king of the dire wolves, but Chai says that he is no king, just a worthless leader who could not protect his friends. But Koa consoles Chai, saying that he hopes Chai will be able to find them safely, and that since they have been given their long-awaited names by Sho, they should also call each other by their new names. At that moment, there was a scream from Sho, who had burnt his piece of meat. So he embarrassedly went near Koa and asked for a little more. The meat had turned into charcoal like the innards earlier, so this time he placed it over a stone and decided to heat it little by little by using infrared radiation. After a little time, the meat is fully cooked, and its delicious smell spreads everywhere. The wolves are looking at Sho's cooked meat with their mouths watering, and Sho stabs the meat with a wooden stick as he picks it up and takes a bite of it, which is delicious. The wolves then come shouting towards Sho, and Sho says that he is not going to share his meat with anyone. At that moment, there was something in the new cave which was quietly observing all of this happening to the oblivious Sho, who was watching Karen tearing off a piece of meat from the boar, and was surprised that Karen was carnivorous. Sho decides to explore the cave to secure it as his base. After exploring around the area, he finds out that between the outer surface and the inside of the cave, there does not seem to be any particular problem, and there is no trace of anything living in there either. So Sho decides that he will turn the first floor into the main room as it has a high ceiling. And if he combines it with where he was yesterday, he would have a 4-story mansion. He then goes to the first underground layer and is taken aback by how wide it is and how tall the ceiling is. Sho observes that the vast space seems to continue all the way back, and he is interested in something sparkling on the back wall. Since there are no signs of life there either, he deems that the floor is also safe, and the problem lies below. He thinks that there is a problem because he used spatial awareness again and realizes that there is definitely something below. He is also concerned about how long the barrier he casted yesterday would last and thinks that he should seriously get a better understanding of magic. Sho then sighs as he thinks that he would have to first check below, but he is scared and does not want to go down. To cheer him up, Koa comes and licks his face. Sho thanks Koa and says that he feels a little better as he determines himself and is ready to go down. Sho slowly descends down with the wolves, and when he reaches down, he sees that there is still a large amount of the shadowy curse left there. The wolves start howling and attacking the curse, but the curse immediately dodges. Sho hurriedly casts the purification spell, but the curse hits the barrier, and Sho realizes that he did not imagine the purification spell before casting, so the spell might have failed. But to Sho's surprise, the curse goes away, and the spell has succeeded. At that moment, Sho does not notice that something has fallen off the barrier and bounced on the ground. Sho is oblivious, searching around trying to see if there is anything there, as the curse seems similar to the curse around Karen from before, and Sho thinks that there would definitely be something there. But then Sho notices something, and it is none other than a spider. The spider is very small, and it is on the ground. Sho bends down to take a look at it, and it is a spider, but it has wings. Before analyzing this further, Sho decides to take care of the black thing at the back as he casts the purification spell again. Sho finds out that the black stuff is seeping out of the ground, so he should purify it properly. After that, what comes out of the black lump is one chief spider and about 20 young spiders. Sho is in front of the spiders and is wondering if the world also has bugs and if they are also monster variants. Sho wonders if the spider is really a spider as it has wings. At that moment, Koa bends down and takes a look at the spider and thinks that it is outstanding as it has survived through the curse all this time. All of a sudden, the chief spider jumps up and lands on top of Sho, who becomes flustered. The rest of the young spiders also jump up on top of Chai, surprising him. After a moment, Sho realizes that the spiders do not seem bad. Sho then says that the second layer is also pretty spacious, and they should check the nooks and crannies later. Sho thinks about how earlier he had shouted out the chant for the spell purification without imagining it, but it had been casted. Sho has a thought that it was crucial for magic to have a mental image, but he wonders if the case is different, so he decides to try something out. Sho then tries to cast the spell fire without imagining anything. Nothing happens, so Sho tries to do it again without anything in mind and casts the spell water. But this time the spell works, and water emerges on the ground. Sho falls into thought and decides to cast the spell fire with a clear image this time, and the spell works as fire emerges on top of Sho's palm. The wolves are looking in awe at Sho's magic. Sho is not able to understand how it worked as the fire had appeared, so he decides that for this time, he would try to cast the spell fire while imagining water. So he does that, and fire appears. So Sho comes to the conclusion that when using a new magic, having a clear image is necessary. However, once a word has been linked to a spell, the word takes priority. The fire Sho had casted is following around as he goes further, and Sho notices that the fire is flickering, and he sees that there is wind coming from a crack in the rock. Sho goes near the crack as he tries to look inside, and he finds that it is pretty spacious inside, but there does not seem to be any sort of curse. It is due to darkness that he cannot see anything, so Sho emerges a ball of light and casts it. But the light is too bright and blinds everyone there, so he apologizes to the others for overdoing it. So Sho tries again to cast a light a little smaller this time, but it becomes too small, so he tries again to do it a little brighter. Sho becomes exhausted as he says that it is tiring to tune magic properly. Sho then takes a look inside the crack, and he sees that there are sparkling rocks inside and wonders what it is. At that moment, the chief spider jumps inside the crack and flies back with a small piece of rock in its claws and brings it back to Sho. Sho sees that it is a beautiful silver stone and thanks the chief spider. Sho then thinks that for some reason, it feels right to call the spider chief. He notices the wolves looking at the piece of stone in awe and asks them if it is perhaps a rare stone. He then says that the piece of stone is definitely pretty, but right then he has no use for it. Sho then says that it does not matter now and the upper floors might also have shiny things as he starts going away. While Sho is oblivious, the wolves are discussing in shock about Sho's calm composure when he saw Mithril, and they are wondering if Sho is really a human. After exploring, Sho finds that there is no other crack for space in the cave, and with that, the conquest of the Rocky Mountain is complete. After that, Sho empties the things in his backpack and finds that there is nothing useful, and his mobile phone also had been blown away when he had gotten run over. After securing the base, Sho plans on looking around for humans, but first, he wants to straighten out the place so it at least has a good place to sleep. At the very least, Sho wants to add something onto the floor to sit on. Sho is imagining that if the rock were smoother and softer, it would be good as he slides his hand over the rock, and to his surprise, the rock becomes smooth because of magic. The wolves are also looking at Sho in shock, and Sho thinks that with this, he could improve comfort, so he decides to smooth out the rock's surface. After a while, all the wolves are looking in awe as Sho has fully smoothed out the surface. The wolves are in awe of Sho as he has filled the heart rocks with magical power, and Koa decides that as he was the first one to arrive there, he would be the first to experience the smooth rock as he jumps onto it. But the moment the wolves go out onto the smooth surface, they start sliding as they can't get a better hold on the smooth surface. Koa embarrassingly thinks that he almost made a fool of himself. Sho is also sweating, as he thinks that tuning magic properly is really hard. It is nighttime, and Chief the Spider is outside the cave, looking at the barrier which withstands lightning strikes. While gazing outside, he thinks about the time when he is a terrifying monster who wears hell's flames. He lives at the bottom of the earth and drags every prey that comes into the lava, and his kin fear him because of that. And those who gaze upon his form are fated to die, and his real name is Terenia, the Death Keeper. Though now he is really small and thinks about how he shrunk, and it seems that he has practically used up all his magic protecting his children. With that, he manages to survive, but he wonders how such a strong miasma disappears. At that moment, somebody calls Chief's old name from behind. Chief turns around to see that it is none other than Koa. Seeing Chief responding to his old name, Koa confirms that it is really him. Koa then asks Chief if it is just his imagination or Chief's form looks as though it would fly from a gust of wind. Chief angrily shouts back, saying that it is none of Koa's business. Chief then asks Koa how things have come to be like this, as the forest is fragrant with magic like it was before the curse, and what happened to the dark magical power, and confirms if Sho is a human. Koa replies that he knows what Chief is trying to say, but they have also been saved by Sho's powers. Chief shouts that it is impossible as humans are the ones who contaminate the forest. Koa denies it, saying that the quality of Sho's magic is completely different, and it is for that reason that they, the Fenrir race, look up to Sho as their master. Chief is shocked to know that the proud Fenrirs serve someone as their master. Koa then threatens Chief, saying that although they have no past grievances with Chief's family, however, if Chief were to turn against Sho, there would be consequences for them. Chief then says that he would not dream of doing something so terrible, as no matter how one looks at it, Sho has several dozen or several 100 times more magic power than them at their full strength. Chief then thinks to himself that Sho's magic power is gently sinking in and is quickly restoring the forest. Koa then sighs and says that if Chief is not hostile, then everything is fine as he does not want the number of kings in the forest to lower anymore. Chief angrily retorts to Koa and asks if he is assuming that Chief would lose. Koa then asks Chief to tell his children to stop teasing the dire wolf. But Chief says that they are not really teasing him, and Koa continues and says that ever since they have moved away from Chief and swarmed around Chai, he has become completely frightened. Chief confusedly asks Koa about him calling the dire wolf Chai, and Koa happily replies that they have been granted names by their master, and from now on, Chief should refer to him as Koa. Koa then proudly shows off, saying that how fine of a name he has received. Chief then thinks about how the previous day show had referred to him as Chief and decided that from then on, his name is Chief. Chief then asks Koa about last night's lightning strikes, as he had sensed a terrifying magic power, and Koa replies that it was most likely the humans were doing some sort of attack, but Shou's barrier had stopped it. Learning about the barrier, Chief is shocked and says that it is impossible and asks if Shou is really maintaining a barrier that covers the sky, as doing that sooner or later would only exhaust Shou's magic power. Koa agrees with Chief's argument and says that even with his former self, he would not have been able to maintain it for a moment. However, Shou seems completely fine. Another place, Shou is lost in thought as he has a feeling that there are no more humans. As for the past several days, while he is preparing his house, he tries flying his drone clairvoyance around. But no matter how far he goes, there is nothing but forest. Despite traveling pretty far, all he sees is a bunch of different animals, and he does not find a single house or road. And as far as the eye can see, all he sees is the forest. Shou is then a little scared as he thinks that he is in a world where humanity does not exist. But he then wipes away that thought, saying that there is still hope in the place he hasn't searched for. Shou then says that on the other hand, the remodeling of his house to change the mood of the place is progressing smoothly. And since the smooth rock incident, he does many experiments and is able to get the floor and walls to feel nicer. He also makes passages to the upper and lower floors by carving out rocks to make staircases, and thanks to that, he gets better at instantaneous movement. From the outside, it looks like a regular rocky mountain, but from the inside, there are staircases that lead to the very top floor, and it is a 4-story mansion with a true story basement. The top floor, which had the first entrance he had used, and he had filled the bottom of the entrance and made it into a window. It was the 4th floor, which had 2 rooms, one of which was the bedroom. Then on the 1st floor, which also had the entrance and transformed the outside, he had made it into a main relaxing room with a high ceiling. Then the 2nd floor is meant to be used as a chilled storage room, and there was some sort of gold-colored ore there. And the 2nd basement floor connected to the space with a silver ore, which he might be able to process into something later. He also gives an arc shape to all the passages so they could be used by Koa. And the only thing that he wishes was that there was someone who could understand him. The wolves brought him food daily, and recently Koa and the others had been competing to eat the organs of the prey. He then remembers that animals and Inuits and such would eat food raw to get vitamins, so burning it was a bad thing. But eating only meat every day was exhausting for Shou, and he wanted to eat fish, even if it meant that he would have to eat a cursed one. At that moment, he sees Koa growling at something, and when he turns around he sees that it is the curse. The other wolves and Spider, except Koa, start running away, and seeing them getting scared, Shou gets angry, and also the last night's terrible lightning was annoying for him. Shou then thinks that getting real would not do anything, so he takes a deep breath and uses the spell Drone Clairvoyance. He then sees that the entire forest is thinly covered with the curse, and he is able to see something like a large lake outside the barrier yesterday. So this time he decides to purify everything up to the lake, and he would also widen the barrier and strengthen it. Koa hurriedly shouts at Shou and asks him what he is trying to do. But Shou, who does not understand Koa, is thinking if he could reach the lake from there, and first he should try by letting his magic flow, as he has gotten pretty used to controlling his magic from carrying all the rocks. So he starts by stretching a single long thin thread towards the lake. The lake is farther than Sho had thought, but he feels like that he could make it. Koa is concerned from the intense magic coming out from Sho, and is trying to warn Sho, saying that any more would be dangerous. But Sho is oblivious, and is imagining expanding the stretched out magic everywhere, covering all the way up to the lake, and carefully making sure to enclose as far as the bottom of the earth. After doing all that, he casts the barrier and purification magic. Koa is amazed by Sho's ability, and Sho is happy that it is a success as the barrier has expanded about 10 times its previous size, and Sho feels that his body is feeling a little lighter. Chief says to Koa that Sho's magic is endless, and they are no match as Sho is unrivaled, and Koa agrees. Sho then notices that the curse that is mixed in the water is mostly flowing in from the outside, so he decides to try filtering it out by using the barrier's membrane as a sort of filter. So he decides to turn it into a 3-layer filtration system. It feels like there is something causing the curse to join, so he is determined that till the others stop, Sho will keep on forcefully sending the curse that piled up every day back. Sho then happily says to Koa that they should go fishing tomorrow. At the Envela's imperial castle, a knight looks out the window and thinks that it is another peaceful day. Another knight, whose name is Mislost, and who is the commander of the 4th Chivalric Order of the Kingdom, calls the first knight from behind, whose name is Ganmers, and he is the commander of Envela's kingdom's 1st Chivalric Order. Ganmers greets Mislost and asks how he is early this time, when Mislost replies that a big one did not even appear. Ganmers then asks if there are no changes in the forest since then, and Mislost replies that there is no particular change, and he wishes that a monster would come out once in a while. Mislost then laughs and says that the kingdom is protected by the king's powerful barrier, and even if something did happen, they would be secure. Ganmers says that it would be fine, but he is still hesitating. Seeing Ganmers like that, Mislost says to him that it is not like Ganmers at all, and asks Ganmers if he is that bothered by the light from the forest. Ganmers says that he is more or less bothered. Here, Ganmers is talking about the incident a few days ago, where a light had spread out in all directions from the center of the forest. Ganmers then says that by using magic stone, their king had acquired the power to suppress the kings of the forest. But in all their lives they had never seen such a drastic change, and to begin with, the kings of the forest weren't mere myths. And it is miraculous that they still had that much power left. Mislost then awkwardly says that because of that the 4th survey expedition was expanded. Then he laughs it off, saying that everything is fine, and that their kingdom has been revealing foreign invaders for hundreds of years thanks to the king and the magician's power, and it is fine for them to just believe in the king and fight. Mislost then continues and says that they need to be cautious of magic beasts outside the barrier growing stronger, since the knights barely fought, and there is nothing much worth doing. Mislost then takes his leave from Ganmers, as Ganmers falls into thought about the magic stone, a complex magic spell which was established in order to bring what's regarded as the center of the world, the forest, under the control, and all of that was sustained by just one magic stone. The stone is said to be found in an ancient ruin, and it emits a strange magical power. There was a rumor that many magicians who tried to analyze the stone were dead. The king and the court mage who controlled the power of the stone were able to stop their bodies from aging for hundreds of years. They had managed to keep their positions as the rulers. Ganmers then denies that thought and says that it is not entirely true, as the king and the court mage seem to be slowly aging. Ever since he had been born, he did not think about it. But just one single thing was holding up the entire kingdom, and he wondered what the magic stone actually was. Ganmers is walking around lost in his thoughts when he sees groups of beast men swaying and walking towards him mindlessly. At that moment, he saw a fat short man was shouting at the beast man and asking them to walk faster while he was whipping them. Ganmers asks the man, saying that it is rather unusual to be walking around with such a large number of slaves. The man starts sweating and greets Ganmers while asking if he has any business with the slave house. Ganmers denies, saying that he is just passing by. and the man says that it is great since even if Ganmers wished for slaves, the man couldn't deliver any as he was running rather low. Ganmers is surprised that the man is running low and asks him, so the man replies that the day before yesterday 50 of those slaves were taken as offerings for the magic stone. But the man suddenly stops as he sees the angry look on Ganmers' face, so he hurriedly leaves the place. At that moment another man comes and greets Ganmers, saying that it is a rare that Ganmers is in such a place. The man is Gamel, and he is the commander of the 5th Chivalric Order. Gamel is a battle junkie within the Magic Stone enhanced troops of the 5th Chivalric Order, and Ganmers is bad at dealing with guys like him. Ganmers asks Gamel if it is a new sword, and that it is quite nice. Gamel replies that the sword is bestowed upon him by the king, and it is similar to the king's magic sword, which grows stronger the more blood it drinks. He then says that he is going to test out his new sword on some slaves, and was thinking of following the king's example and drinking plenty of their blood. Ganmers warns him to do it in moderation. Gamel then goes towards the fat man and says that he has some nice-looking sleeps as it takes out his sword. But before the fat man could stop him, Gamel has already killed 2 slaves with his sword, and he is going to kill more slaves. But a mage hurriedly comes and stops him, saying that Gamel should wait till the sword absorbs the energy, and there is a technique he needs to do. And Ganmers, on the other hand, is getting angry and is thinking that the kingdom is going mad. Like, share, and subscribe to find out in the next video. Hit the bell icon to get notified when I upload part 2. See you soon.